and therefore memory is limited, therefore thought is limited, and it has its own activity, which then brings about conflict.
Yes. I think this would connect up with what people are saying about computers. You see, every computer must eventually depend on some kind of memory,
Memory, yes.
Which is put in, or else
programmed,
and that must be limited, right?
Of course.
Because now, therefore, when we operate from memory, we are not very different from a computer, or the other way around. Perhaps the computer is not very different from us.
I'll say once, a Hindu has been programmed for the last 5,000 years to be a Hindu. Or in this country, or you're being programmed as British, or as a Catholic, or a Protestant.
Yes.
So we're all programmed up to a certain extent.
Yes. Now then we could say that you're bringing in the notion of an intelligence which is free of the program, which is creative perhaps.
Yes, that's right.
And
that intelligence has nothing to do with memory and knowledge.
Yes, it may act in memory and knowledge, but it has nothing to do with it in its
origin.
It may
act through memory, etc. That's right. And how do you find out whether it has any reality, not just imagination and romantic nonsense? How do you find out? To come to that, one has to go into the whole question of suffering, whether there's an ending to suffering. And as long as suffering and fear and the pursuit of pleasure exist, there cannot be love.
Yes, well, there are many questions there. Now, the first point is, say, suffering, or including pleasure, fear, and suffering, and I suppose we can include anger and violence and greed in there.
Of course, otherwise...
yes. Now, we could say that all those, we're saying, first of all, that all those are the response of memory.
Yes.
They're nothing to do with intelligence.
All part of thought and memory.
And that as long as they are going on, it seems to me that intelligence cannot operate in thought.
That's right.
Or through thought.
So there must be the freedom from suffering.
Yes, well, that's a very key point. Now,
that's a really very serious and deep question, whether it's possible to end suffering, which is the ending of me.
Yes, well, yes, again, of course, it may seem repetitious, but the feeling is that I am there, and I either suffer or don't suffer. That is, I either enjoy things or suffer.
Yes, I know that.
Now, I think you're saying that suffering arises from thought. It is thought.
Identified.
Yes, and that...
attachment.
So what is it that suffers? You see, there's this feeling, it's really the opposite of the feeling of pleasure, it seems to me, that whenever pleasure, memory may produce pleasure, and then when it doesn't work, it produces, when it's frustrated, it produces pain and suffering.
Not only that, suffering is much more complex, isn't it?
Yes.
Suffering, what is suffering?
Yes, well, that's...
The meaning of the word is to have pain, to have grief, to feel utterly lost, lonely.
Yes, well, it seems to me that it's not only pain, but a kind of a total pain,
yes.
a very pervasive.
But suffering is the loss of someone.
Or loss of something very important, right?
Yes, of course. Loss of my wife, or loss of my son, brother, whatever it is. And the desperate sense of loneliness.
Yes, or else just simply the fact that the whole world is going into such a state.
Of course. I mean, all the wars.
And makes everything meaningless, you see.
What a lot of suffering the Balkan Wars have created.
Yeah. Well, all these wars, I mean, it's...
And wars have been going on for thousands of years. That's why we are carrying on with the same pattern of the last 5,000 years or more of wars.
Yes. Now, one can easily see that the violence and hatred in wars will interfere with intelligence.
Obvious.
Now, it's not quite so obvious. See, I think some people have felt that suffering, by going through suffering, people become
intelligent,
purified, like going through the crucible,
yes,
the metal
yes,
being refined in the crucible, right?
I know that through suffering you learn.
Or you are purified in some way.
You are purified. This is through suffering. Your ego is vanished.
Yeah, dissolved,
Dissolved.
Refined.
It doesn't. People
Yes.
have suffered immensely. How many wars, how many tears. And the destructive nature of governments.
Yeah, so they've suffered any number of things.
I can multiply them. Unemployment, ignorance of
Yes,
all.
disease, pain, everything. But you see, what is suffering really? Why does it destroy intelligence or interfere, why does suffering prevent intelligence? What is going on, really?
Suffering is only concern, is a shock, I suffer. I have pain. It is the essence of the me.
Yes, the difficulty with suffering is that it's the me that is there that is suffering.
Yes.
And this me is really being sorry for itself in some way.
My suffering is different from your suffering.
It isolates itself, yes.
Yes.
And it creates an illusion of some kind.
We don't see suffering is shared by all humanity.
Yes, well, but if we suppose we see it is shared by all humanity.
Then I say, well, then I begin to question what suffering is. It's not my suffering.
Yes, well, that's important. In order to understand the nature of suffering, I have to get out of this idea that it's my suffering.
My suffering.
Because as long as I believe it's my suffering, I have an illusory notion of the whole thing. Now that's
and I can never end it.
Yeah, well, but not if you treat it. If you're dealing with an illusion, well, you can do nothing with it. But you see, why? Now we have to come back. Why is suffering the suffering of humanity? See, at first it seems that I feel pain in the tooth, or else I have a loss, or something has happened to me, and the other person seems perfectly happy.
Yes, that's right. But also he is suffering too in his own way.
Yes, at the moment you don't see it. He doesn't see it, but he has his problems too. Right?
So suffering is common to all humanity.
Yeah, but the fact that it's common is not enough to make it all one.
It's actual.
Yes, but I want to say, are you saying that the suffering of mankind is all one, inseparable?
Yes, sir. That's what I've been saying.
As is the consciousness of mankind.
Yeah, that's right.
That when anybody suffers, the whole of mankind is suffering, right?
If one country kills hundreds and thousands of human beings, the whole point is we have suffered from the beginning of time. We have suffered. And we haven't solved it.
No, that's clear. It hasn't been solved. We haven't solved it. But see, I think
ended suffering.
I think you've said something. The thing you've said, which is that the reason we haven't solved it is because we are treating it as personal or as a small group where it cannot. That's an illusion. Now, any attempt to deal with an illusion cannot solve anything. Now, we would like to make it very clear.
Thought cannot solve anything.
Well, yes, because the thought, you can say that the thought itself divides. Let's say, put it, thought is limited. It is not able to see that this suffering is all one, right?
Yes.
And therefore it divides it up, right?
That's
It's mine and yours and theirs.
That's
And that creates illusion which only multiplies suffering. Now, it seems to me that the statement that suffering of mankind is one is inseparable from the statement the consciousness of mankind is one, right?
We said that.
Yes.
Suffering is part of our consciousness.
Yes.